I spent $5,000 to surprise my dad, but I didn't know my sister had already planned to humiliate me. The evening began with a quiet hum of anticipation. I had booked a private dining room at Aurelia's Garden, one of San Francisco's most exclusive restaurants, with panoramic views of the city skyline twinkling below. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen stars over the white linen-covered tables, each perfectly set with gleaming silverware and delicate glassware. Candles flickered softly, casting golden shadows across the walls, giving the room a warm and intimate glow. This was exactly what I had imagined for Dad's 65th birthday, a night that felt magical and celebratory. Dad walked in first, his eyes widening at the sight of the room. "Emily, this is incredible," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "I can't believe you arranged this." He stepped closer and squeezed my hand gently, his eyes shining. "Did you really get a reservation here? I've heard there's a 6-month wait." I smiled, nodding casually. "I might have had a little help through work," I said, not elaborating. After all, this dinner wasn't just about the surprise. It was about Dad feeling truly special on his milestone birthday. Before I could soak in his excitement, Sarah, my older sister, sauntered into the room, perfectly dressed in a silk blouse and designer heels. She raised her glass of red wine with that smug look I had seen 100 times before. "Emily," she said, her tone dripping with mock concern, "we need to talk." I froze slightly. The familiar pang of anxiety hit me. Sarah always had a knack for turning celebrations into judgment sessions. I tried to deflect, raising an eyebrow. "On Dad's birthday?" I asked cautiously. "Especially on Dad's birthday," she said, ignoring my question. She waved her hand dramatically at the room. "Do you even know how much this is costing? Aurelia's Garden doesn't do casual dinners. The wine alone probably costs more than your entire month's rent. And you are living in a tiny studio in Queens, supposedly consulting. Yet here you are, splurging like some millionaire." I felt my jaw tighten, but I stayed calm. "I can afford this," I said, quietly, letting the words hang in the air. Derek, her husband, chuckled harshly. "Oh, really? With what income, Emily? Sarah makes $180,000 a year. I make $350,000. We know what real money looks like. You're going to end up in debt trying to keep up appearances." I felt a flash of irritation, but also a strange resolve. They had no idea what was coming. The waiter approached with the first course, lobster thermidor, Dad's favorite. He set the plate down with a quiet flourish, oblivious to the tension at our table. I watched Dad's face light up as he took the first bite, savoring every morsel. For him, this was a night to remember, and no amount of criticism could overshadow that. But Sarah wasn't done. "You need to stop pretending, Emily. It's embarrassing. A birthday dinner like this, you should be at a nice, simple restaurant, not splurging where you clearly don't belong." I took a slow breath, calm but firm. "Dad deserves this, nothing less." Sarah scoffed. "With credit cards, no doubt?" I stayed silent, feeling the tension thrum around the table, but inside, a small smile tugged at my lips. They had no idea. Not yet. The stage was set. The mockery, the suspense, the misunderstanding, it was all about to escalate. And by the end of the night, everything they thought they knew about me would be turned upside down. She laughed in front of Dad, convinced I was broke. Little did she know what I was about to reveal. The clink of silverware against china echoed softly, a rhythm that seemed almost mocking against the tension at our table. Sarah leaned back in her chair, swirling her wine and letting out a dramatic sigh. "Emily, you really need to stop with these expensive shows of wealth," she said, her tone sharp. "You live in a small apartment. You barely have a steady job. And now this, a private dinner at Aurelia's Garden?" I forced a calm smile, sipping my sparkling water. The waiter placed a perfectly seared filet mignon in front of Dad, who barely noticed, still glowing from the surprise of the room. "It's Dad's birthday," I reminded gently. "I want him to enjoy it." Sarah's lips curled in a condescending smirk. "Enjoy?
At what cost? This is not a casual night out, Emily. The wine, the food, the room, it's more than your annual rent, I bet. I felt a ripple of irritation, but I kept my voice low. I can afford this. Oh, really? Sarah's eyes narrowed, and she leaned closer as if exposing a grand conspiracy. Show us then. Prove it. Derek, her husband, smirked. Yeah, show us the bank balance. Or is this just another fantasy? His laughter cut through the warm air, sharp and cruel. I glanced at Dad. He looked pained, shifting uncomfortably. I could see the unease in Mom's face, too. She never liked arguments, especially not on family celebrations. Michael, my younger brother, nodded gravely, his MBA training showing even in casual family meals. He said, sort of quietly, I've been tracking my expenses. There's no way a freelance consultant could pull off a dinner like this without massive debt. You need to live within your means. Freelance consultant, I repeated the phrase in my head, almost laughing. Whatever it is I do with computers and events, Sarah dismissed it casually, but it had funded not just this dinner, but hundreds of other projects. They had no idea. I took a deep breath, keeping my tone calm but firm. Dad deserves this, and I have the means to make it happen. Sarah scoffed, with credit cards, no doubt. I ignored her, focusing on Dad's expression instead. He looked torn, grateful yet embarrassed by the public argument. The waiter set down Dad's favorite dessert, a chocolate soufflé with molten center. Steam curled from the top and the aroma filled the room. Dad's eyes softened as he reached for a fork. I reached into my purse, letting a faint smile tug at my lips. Actually, Sarah, I said, you might be right. Let me prove it to you. I pulled out the Elite Platinum card, a sleek titanium card with a weight that felt like reassurance in my hand. Sarah's eyes whitened slightly, but her voice remained dripping with skepticism. Oh, please, you really think that card is real? I handed it to the waiter, who nodded professionally and swiped it without a word. The entire room held its breath as we waited for the result. Sarah leaned back, shaking her head, already anticipating my failure. Derek smirked like a vulture circling its prey. 5 minutes later, the card was declined. The room went silent, a sharp contrast to the soft jazz playing in the background. Sarah burst out laughing. See? I knew it! You're pretending again! I felt a small inward smile. Little did they know this was exactly the moment when the night would turn in my favor. The waiter approached, whispering politely, Would you like to try another payment method, Miss Harper? I reached for my phone, pretending to check the card's status. But in reality, I was calling the person who would flip this night entirely, someone who knew the truth about the financial empire I'd quietly built. I pulled out my Elite Platinum card, and the entire restaurant went silent. I took a slow, deliberate breath, letting the tension build around the table. The dessert had just arrived. A delicate chocolate soufflé, steam curling from the center like a promise of indulgence, and all eyes were on me. I reached into my purse and pulled out the Elite Platinum card, sleek, black titanium, its surface catching the warm candlelight. The waiter's eyes flicked up briefly, then returned to his professional composure as he took the card from my hand. The room was silent, except for the soft clink of silverware and the faint hum of conversation from the main dining area. Oh, please, Sarah scoffed, rolling her eyes dramatically. You think this fancy card proves anything? It's probably fake. Derek chuckled behind her. Yeah, like the rest of your little show, he added mockingly. I didn't flinch. I handed the card to the waiter and said calmly, Please run the payment for tonight's dinner. The waiter swiped the card, inserted the machine, and entered the amount. A few seconds passed, then the machine beeped. Red letters flashed across the screen. Declined. Sarah's laughter exploded, echoing across the room. See? I told you! You're pretending to be rich! She shrieked, eyes sparkling with triumph. Derek laughed so hard he almost spilled his wine. Michael's jaw dropped. Even Dad looked uneasy, trying to hide his embarrassment. I felt a small, controlled smile tug at my lips. I wasn't worried. Not at all. "It's not fake," I said quietly, almost enough to be drowned out by the family's laughter. Sarah shook her head incredulously. "Not fake? Are you joking? Do you know what penalties there are for using fake credit cards?" "It's not fake," I repeated, louder this time, maintaining my calm. "I just don't think anyone's ready for the reason it declined." Her confusion only made my resolve firmer. The waiter returned, polite but cautious. "Miss Harper, would you like to try another method of payment?" I held up my phone casually. "No, thank you. Just a minute." And then, in a blur of motion, the door opened and a man in a sharply tailored suit hurried into the room. His steps were brisk, his expression slightly panicked but controlled. Thomas Lynn, the general manager of Aurelia's Garden, was someone I had worked extensively through my corporate events. "Ms. Harper, I just heard about the issue with the card. I'm so sorry." The laughter at the table cut off abruptly. Everyone froze, turning toward him. I gestured calmly. "Thomas, is there a problem with the payment system?" No, the system is fine," he assured quickly. "The card declined because our accounting department still owes your company $500,000 from last month's events. They flagged it automatically. The system can't charge someone we already owe." The room fell silent. The soft jazz from the main dining room seemed distant now. Dad whispered, almost in disbelief, "$500,000? I let the silence stretch, watching their expressions morph from smug amusement to shock and confusion. Sarah's lips parted slightly, Derek stared wide-eyed, and even Michael just shook his head in disbelief. I leaned back, allowing the tension to settle just long enough for them to realize that everything they thought they knew about me was wrong. This was the turning point. The night had been full of mockery and doubt, but in a single revelation, the truth began to surface, and it was far more than any of them had imagined.
When I finally told them what I really do, their jaws dropped to the table. The room was silent, almost painfully so. The clatter of silverware, once casual, now seemed to echo mockingly around the elegant private dining room. Dad's eyes were wide, trying to comprehend the numbers Thomas Lynn had just revealed. $500,000 owed to my company. Sarah's face had gone pale, and Derek looked like someone had thrown cold water over him. Michael just shook his head slowly, unable to speak. I took a deep breath, letting the silence linger just long enough for the weight of the moment to settle. "This isn't a mistake," I said softly. "It's our accounting department making sure our corporate clients' payments are processed correctly." Sarah blinked, still uncertain. "Wait, your company?" "Yes," I said simply, letting the words hang. "My company. Anderson Events, the event planning and catering business I've been building for the past 4 years. Dad's hand went to his mouth, his face a mixture of pride and disbelief. "Emily, I don't even know what to say," he whispered. Sarah's lips were pressed tight, her eyes scanning me as if trying to find some clue that she had been fooled. "But you said you were a consultant." "I do consult," I said, voice calm but firm. "Technically accurate. I consult with people about events, how to plan, how to execute, how to deliver an experience they'll never forget. But that's only part of what we do. We execute the events, manage logistics, vendors, staff, budgets, everything." Michael's jaw had dropped. "How large is the largest luxury event planning company?" he asked slowly. I smiled faintly, pulling out my phone and opening the banking app, turning it so they could all see. Last year revenue was $47 million. This year we're on track for $68 million. Sarah's face turned completely white. Derek's phone almost slipped from his hand as he scrolled frantically. $68 million? He muttered under his breath. "Yes.
And our client list includes 12 Fortune 100 companies, over 40 high net worth individuals with assets exceeding $50 million, and we're the exclusive event planners for the United Nations, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and the New York Philharmonic. Dad's hand shook slightly as he reached for mine. 12 Fortune 100 companies? The Met? UN? His voice was barely audible. Yes, the charity gala you attended last month, the one that raised $12 million for cancer research? That was us. The Rockefeller wedding, the Goldman Sachs anniversary party, the UN's 75th anniversary celebration, all planned, managed, and executed by my team. Sarah's lips parted, but no sound came out. Derek's fingers flew across his phone screen. Michael just shook his head slowly. I leaned forward, letting the truth sink in. I live simply because I work 18-hour days. I dress modestly so clients focus on their events, not my outfits. I drive a regular car because it's reliable and doesn't draw attention. But I've been building something incredible on my own, completely independently without anyone helping me. Mom's eyes glistened with tears as she finally spoke. All of these years, and you didn't tell us? Because I wanted you to love me for who I am, not what I've built, I replied softly. I wanted this to be my own accomplishment, something I could create from scratch without anyone claiming I succeeded because of family connections. The champagne glass on the table glinted in the soft light, and I raised mine slightly. Tonight isn't about proving anything. It's about celebrating Dad. And I wanted it to be perfect. The tension around the table began to soften, replaced with astonishment and a quiet pride. The family was processing the truth. The woman they thought was struggling, living modestly, and making reckless financial decisions was in fact a multi-millionaire businesswoman who had quietly built an empire.
The moment they realized I wasn't struggling, everything changed. The room remained thick with silence, the soft clinking of silverware and gentle jazz from the main dining area, now almost oppressive. Dad's hand still rested on mine, shaking slightly as he tried to process the revelation. Mom's tears had been wiped away, replaced by an astonished smile, but the shock on Sarah and Derek's faces was palpable. Sarah was the first to break the silence, though her voice trembled with a mix of disbelief and suppressed anger. You've been living in Queens, working some consulting job, and all this time you've been running the largest luxury event planning company on the East Coast? Her words stumbled out, as if her mind couldn't wrap around the scale of what she just learned. I nodded, my expression calm but firm. Yes, 4 years, 200 major events, full-time staff, hundreds of contractors, everything handled in-house. Corporate clients, high net worth individuals, exclusive events like the UN Anniversary Gala. I let the words linger, letting the weight of each revelation settle. Derek leaned back in his chair, scrolling furiously through his phone. Wait. Emily Anderson? Emily Anderson? Forbes 30 under 30? Multi-millionaire? Yes, I said quietly, a faint smile playing on my lips. And as of last quarter, my net worth is $28 million, not including the value of the company itself, my real estate holdings and investments. Michael shook his head, disbelief written across his face. And you live in a Queens apartment? I let out a quiet laugh. Long Island City, penthouse, private terrace overlooking Manhattan, building with its own helipad. But yes, modest living by choice, not necessity. I wanted to prove I could build something extraordinary on my own, without flaunting wealth. Dad's hands were trembling now. I can't believe it. All this time, I thought you were just struggling, working hard just to get by. And here you are, you've been a millionaire under our noses. Mom's voice was soft, filled with emotion. All these years, I never doubted your talent, but I had no idea. Why didn't you tell us?
Because I wanted you to love me for me. Not for money, not for achievements, not for what people think. I wanted this to be something I earned entirely on my own. Sarah was still processing, her fingers drumming on the table. I lectured you tonight about financial responsibility. I called you reckless, and you were worth more than Derek and I combined? Her voice cracked slightly, disbelief transforming into a grudging respect. Yes, I said simply. All this time, the concern, the judgment, it was rooted in love, and that's why I didn't correct you until tonight. Derek's face was pale, his usual confident demeanor replaced by awkward silence. I had no idea, he muttered, voice tight. This changes everything. Michael's expression softened. I guess we were wrong to doubt you, completely. Dad reached across the table, taking both my hands now, his eyes glistening. I'm so proud of you, Emily. But more than that, I'm proud that you did this on your own. You didn't need anyone's help. You built something extraordinary, and yet you never tried to show off. That's incredible. Mom nodded, wiping another tear from her cheek. I'm so happy you're happy, and that you love what you do. That's more important than anything. Sarah's lips twitched, as if she was forcing herself to smile. I guess I have a lot to apologize for. Tonight I judged you unfairly. I smiled gently. You were trying to protect me. I understand. But now you know the truth. The waiter returned with a bottle of champagne, pouring it slowly into our glasses. Compliments of the house, Miss Anderson, he said politely. The gesture felt symbolic, a quiet acknowledgement of the night's dramatic shift. Dad raised his glass slightly, his hand still trembling. To Emily, the daughter we thought we knew and the woman we're just discovering tonight. I clinked my glass against his, smiling warmly. To family, and to the people who love each other even when they're wrong about everything. Everyone echoed softly, the tension finally melting into laughter and murmurs of amazement. The room had shifted from judgment to admiration, disbelief to pride. For the first time that evening, we were united not just as a family, but in awe of what had quietly been accomplished right in front of them. I wanted tonight to be about more than money. It was about family. The revelation of my company and wealth had left the family stunned, but I wasn't finished. This night was about Dad, and no amount of money or shock value could take away from the reason we were here, celebrating his 60th birthday. I took a deep breath, letting the silence linger for a moment before speaking. Dad, I said softly, tonight isn't just about me or the money. It's about you. Every detail in this room, the lobster, the dessert, the wine, it's all because I wanted to make your birthday unforgettable. Dad blinked, trying to process the words, his face breaking into a smile that made every second of tension worth it. Sweetheart, this is incredible, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I can't believe you did all this for me. I gestured around the private dining room, the soft golden light of the chandeliers casting a glow on every carefully set table. I know we had a bit of a rough start tonight, I said, giving a small smile to Sarah and Derek. But now I want us to enjoy this evening together, as a family. Mom, still teary-eyed, reached for my hand. Emily, seeing you tonight, seeing everything you've built, it makes me so proud. But this gesture for your father, it's the most meaningful thing I've ever seen. Sarah, slowly regaining her composure, let out a quiet laugh. I guess I misjudged you, she admitted. Derek nodded in agreement, still scrolling through news articles about my company, but visibly humbled. I smiled, raising my glass lightly. Let's toast, I said, letting the warmth of the moment settle over the table. To Dad, who deserves every bit of joy we can give him, and to family, who sometimes doubts but always cares. Glasses clinked and the sound rang like a celebration, not just of a birthday, but of understanding and love. The laughter returned, softer now, more genuine, no longer mixed with judgment or tension. Then I leaned forward, eyes twinkling with mischief. And there's one more surprise, I said. Next month, we're celebrating Mom and Dad's 35th anniversary. I've booked a private wine tasting and jazz trio for 50 guests. Actually, make that 100. The extended family is invited. No expense spared. Dad's eyes widened in shock. Emily, you've planned this too? Yes, I replied calmly, enjoying the moment. Because family deserves the best. And tonight reminded me that sharing joy with the people who raised you is worth more than anything money can buy. Mom reached over, squeezing my hand. You always surprise us, Emily. Always. Sarah shook her head softly, still laughing softly. I guess I have to admit, my little sister isn't so little anymore. Michael leaned back, eyes wide. You've built an empire, handled hundreds of events flawlessly, and yet you still put family first. I have to say, I didn't see that coming. I smiled warmly, the pride and relief mixing with love. That's the point. Success is meaningless without the people who support you, who love you unconditionally. Tonight, it's not about how much I've built. It's about celebrating Dad and our family. The waiter returned with another bottle of champagne, pouring it slowly into the glasses as we laughed together. This time, there was no tension, no judgment, only warmth, pride, and a shared understanding that family, love, and authenticity were worth far more than any fortune. Dad raised his glass again, slightly trembling. To Emily, the daughter who surprises us, challenges us, and proves that love and dedication create true wealth. I clinked my glasses with his, smiling. To family, and to the moments that remind us what really matters. The room filled with laughter, conversation, and shared memories. In that moment, surrounded by those I loved, I realized that the true celebration wasn't in the expensive lobster or the exquisite dessert. It was in the genuine connection, the shared joy, and the love that had been quietly present all along.
They think it's all glitz and glamour, but they have no idea what it really takes. The champagne glasses clinked softly as the family began to relax, still absorbing the revelation of my company and my net worth. But I wanted them to understand that success didn't come magically. It had come with long nights, impossible deadlines, and pressure that could crush anyone. Let me tell you something, I said, leaning back slightly. When people see the events we plan, the lavish galas, the weddings, the UN celebrations, they think it's just about luxury and style. They see the glittering chandeliers, the crystal wine glasses, the perfectly arranged flowers. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. Dad leaned in, curiosity replacing his shock. What do you mean, Emily? I took a deep breath. Every event starts with months of preparation. Hundreds of emails, dozens of meetings with clients, venue scouting, vendor negotiations. Every minute detail matters because one mistake can ruin a multi-million-dollar event. Sarah rolled her eyes playfully, still processing everything. So it's not just about throwing parties and looking rich? I smiled. Exactly. It's about logistics, timing, creativity, and problem solving under immense pressure. For the UN's 75th anniversary celebration, I spent 6 months coordinating every aspect, from security clearances to lighting designs to coordinating live broadcasts. One wrong decision, and it could have been a disaster in front of the world. Michael's jaw dropped. 6 months? For one event? Yes, I said, nodding. And that's just one of hundreds we've done. The Rockefeller wedding, the Goldman Sachs anniversary gala, the Metropolitan Museum charity event, they all had their own challenges. My team and I had to anticipate every possible problem, create backups for backups, and execute flawlessly. It's not just planning, it's orchestrating chaos into perfection.
Derek finally looked up from his phone, a newfound respect in his eyes. So all this glitz, it's really work, hard work. Exactly. And it's why I live modestly, why I don't flaunt my wealth. Because the real reward is seeing the event succeed, seeing the client's vision come to life, and knowing that I created it from nothing. Mom's eyes glistened. I had no idea, Emily. I knew you were talented, but I never realized the scale of your work. It must be exhausting. It is, I admitted. 18-hour days, sleepless nights, constant problem solving. But it's also thrilling, satisfying, and worth every challenge. And tonight, all of that effort comes full circle because I can give Dad a birthday he'll never forget. Dad squeezed my hand, voice thick with emotion. Sweetheart, I'm proud beyond words, not just for your success, but for who you are. You're humble, kind, and thoughtful, and you've done all of this while staying true to yourself. Sarah, still processing, finally nodded slowly. I underestimated you, completely. I thought this was just money and glamour. I didn't see the dedication behind it all. I smiled warmly. And that's okay. That's why tonight matters. Not just the money or the events, but showing you all the heart, effort, and passion behind what I do. Michael leaned forward, a curious grin on his face. So all the articles, the Forbes recognition, the net worth, that's just the tip of the iceberg. You really earned everything the hard way. Exactly. And now that you know, you understand why the black card got declined tonight. Not because I was pretending, but because our accounting system flagged that the restaurant already owed us money from previous corporate events. That's the reality behind the glitz. Derek shook his head, chuckling softly. I never thought I'd be humbled by a sister younger than me. The family laughed quietly, the tension finally dissolved. This chapter of the evening wasn't about wealth or judgment anymore. It was about understanding, admiration, and the stories behind the surface. I could see it in their eyes, a mix of pride, awe, and a realization that success often comes hidden, behind the scenes, and far from the public eye. As the dessert course was served, a chocolate souffle, Dad's favorite, I felt a quiet satisfaction. Tonight, the family hadn't just discovered my wealth, they'd glimpsed the dedication, the sleepless nights, and the human effort behind every triumph. And that, more than any fancy dinner, was worth celebrating.
The next surprise would make tonight's revelation seem small by comparison. The chocolate souffle had been cleared, Dad's smile lingering as he leaned back in his chair, still absorbing the whirlwind of revelations from earlier. But I wasn't done. Tonight wasn't just about celebrating Dad's birthday. It was about showing my family the world I had built, and how they could be part of it too. I looked around the table, eyes locking with each of them in turn. So, I said, now that you know the truth, I have an idea. I want to plan something special for Mom and Dad's 35th anniversary next month, a celebration that they'll never forget. Dad raised an eyebrow, a mixture of curiosity and excitement crossing his face. Special? Like what? I leaned forward, smiling. Imagine a private wine tasting in an exclusive venue with a live jazz trio, your favorite flowers, and the chocolate desserts you love, Dad. But more than that, I want to include the extended family, friends you've known for decades, and a few surprises along the way. Mom's eyes widened, tears forming again. Emily, that sounds incredible, but the cost? I shook my head. Cost is not a concern tonight. This is about creating memories, about celebrating the people we love. And as you've seen tonight, I have the means to make it happen. Sarah blinked, still recovering from the earlier shock of my wealth. So you're saying you'll handle everything? The venue, the catering, the entertainment? Yes, I said confidently. And this time you'll see how much effort goes into planning an event. You'll understand why what I do requires dedication, creativity, and patience. And tonight, you'll get a sneak peek. Michael's eyes lit up. A sneak peek? You mean we get to see how the magic happens?
I nodded, a mischievous glint in my eyes. Exactly. We'll start with a tour of the setup. Lights, decor, tables, floral arrangements. I'll show you how I coordinate vendors, manage timelines, and handle last-minute emergencies. You'll see the behind-the-scenes work that turns ordinary moments into unforgettable memories. Dad's hands trembled slightly as he reached for mine. I can't imagine it. Emily, this is beyond anything I could have dreamed of. Mom smiled softly, squeezing my hand. You've taken care of us for decades in ways we didn't even realize. And now, you're giving us this. Sarah, still processing her previous judgment, shook her head, a soft laugh escaping her. I think I'm finally understanding. This isn't just about money. It's about effort, thoughtfulness, and knowing exactly how to create experiences that people will remember forever. I smiled, leaning back. Exactly. And that's what I want for Mom and Dad's anniversary. I want them to feel celebrated, loved, and cherished, not just with expensive decorations, but with every detail reflecting their lives, their choices, and the love they've given all of us. Derek, who had been quiet for most of the evening, finally spoke, his voice filled with awe. I have to admit, I underestimated you. Completely. This is more than an event. It's an experience. Yes, I nodded. And that's the key. Life's best moments aren't about showing off. They're about creating memories, shared joy, and celebrating the people who matter most. Tonight was the first step, and the anniversary will be the next. Dad raised his glass once again, eyes glistening. To Emily, the daughter who surprises us, teaches us, and shows us that love, dedication, and creativity are worth more than anything money can buy. I clinked my glass with his, smiling. To family, and to moments that matter. The rest of the evening flowed differently now. The conversation shifted from shock and judgment to excitement and curiosity. Sarah asked questions about floral arrangements, Derek inquired about lighting design, and Michael wanted to know how I coordinate vendors across multiple time zones. Mom and Dad shared stories of past celebrations, and I began weaving them into ideas for the anniversary party, sketching plans in my mind as the candlelight flickered across the table. For the first time that evening, the family saw me not just as a multi-millionaire, but as someone who uses her success to bring joy to the people she loves most. And as we left Lou Bernadine that night, walking into the crisp Manhattan air, I knew the next chapter wasn't just about wealth or status, but about turning love into unforgettable memories, one perfectly planned event at a time. What I had planned for their anniversary would leave them speechless and reveal a side of me they had never seen before. The day of Mom and Dad's 35th anniversary arrived with a golden sunrise stretching across Manhattan. I had been planning every detail for weeks: the venue, the floral arrangements, the lighting, even the subtle music that would play as guests arrived. But tonight wasn't just about the extravagance. It was about creating a moment that would make my family feel truly celebrated. As Mom and Dad were led into the grand hall, their eyes widened. The room had been transformed. Soft amber lights danced across the walls, a jazz trio played in the corner, and hundreds of flowers filled every corner with delicate fragrance. Each table had personalized notes, recounting cherished memories spanning 35 years of love, laughter, and perseverance. Mom gasped softly, "Emily, this is beautiful." Dad shook his head, eyes glistening. "I've never seen anything like this. Emily, you've outdone yourself." I smiled, but the real surprise wasn't just the decor. As their guests settled in, I dimmed the lights slightly and tapped my microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice calm but commanding, "thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate a very special couple, my parents. Tonight, we're not just celebrating an anniversary. We're celebrating the life they've built, the love they've shared, and the family they've nurtured." The crowd clapped politely, but I could see my family's curiosity deepen. What was coming next? With a signal to my team, the lights shifted, revealing a series of large screens that had been subtly integrated into the decor. One by one, photos and videos appeared. Their wedding, family vacations, and countless moments that had shaped our lives. Some moments were tender, some funny, and others were moments they had forgotten. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. "Emily, how did you get these?" "All collected over the years," I said softly. "Tonight, it's about remembering every laugh, every milestone, and every moment that made your journey remarkable." Then came the highlight, a video montage showing not only family memories, but also glimpses behind the scenes of the events I had planned for high-profile clients. They saw the chaos behind the glamour, the sleepless nights, the meticulous attention to detail, and the triumphant moments when everything came together flawlessly. Sarah and Derek leaned closer to the screen, their earlier judgment replaced with awe. Michael's mouth hung open. I had no idea. This is incredible. Dad's voice trembled as he whispered, "I always knew you were capable, Emily, but this is something else." As the montage ended, the jazz trio transitioned seamlessly into Dad's favorite song. I stepped forward with a small envelope. "One more surprise," I said. "Inside is a note for each of you, something personal for me, acknowledging the love and support that made all of this possible." Mom unfolded hers first, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Emily, this is so thoughtful." Dad read his and then looked at me, shaking his head in disbelief. "I don't know what to say. You've taken care of us for decades, and now this. It's perfect." Sarah finally spoke, softly but with genuine emotion. "I think I understand now. All those expensive dinners, all those gifts, it wasn't about showing off. It was about showing love." I nodded, smiling. "Exactly. Tonight, you've seen the heart behind what I do and why family always comes first, no matter how busy or successful life gets." As the evening progressed, laughter filled the room, stories were shared, and old memories were relived. The family that had doubted me, questioned my choices, and teased me about money now sat united, proud, and deeply moved. The final toast of the evening came from Dad. "To Emily, who reminds us that love, creativity, and effort are worth more than any fortune. To our family, who learns to see the heart behind the wealth." Glasses clinked. This time, the sound carried warmth, gratitude, and a deep sense of connection. It was more than an anniversary. It was a celebration of trust, dedication, and family. A night that would be remembered for a lifetime.
Sometimes the greatest gift isn't money, fame, or power. It's simply being yourself. The anniversary celebration had wound down. The last guests had left, the jazz trio packed up, and the warm glow of candles reflected softly across the empty hall. My parents sat quietly, hand in hand, still absorbing the evening's events. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the night settle in, a mixture of relief, pride, and gratitude. This wasn't just about the anniversary or the surprises. It was about truth, authenticity, and family. Dad looked at me, voice thick with emotion. "Emily, all these years, I thought I understood you. But tonight, I've realized I barely scratched the surface. You've accomplished so much, and yet you're still the same daughter who cares so deeply for us." Mom's eyes glistened. "And you did it all quietly, without needing us to notice. That humility, that's rare." I smiled softly. "That was the point. I wanted you to love me for who I am, not for the wealth or recognition. I wanted my achievements to stand on their own, and my love for you to remain genuine, not transactional." Sarah, still absorbing the shock of the past few weeks, finally spoke. "I can't believe how wrong I was about everything. I judged you for appearances, for money, for choices I didn't understand. And yet, everything you've done has been remarkable. Not just the wealth, but the thoughtfulness, the effort, the heart." Derek nodded in agreement.
finally seeing beyond the surface. You've set a standard not just for success, but for integrity and creativity. Michael, who had always looked up to me in silence, finally broke into a grin. You've taught us all a lesson tonight, that it's not about showing off or living for appearances. It's about doing your work well, loving your family, and staying true to yourself. I felt a warmth spread through me. This was the culmination of everything I'd worked for. Not the accolades, not the recognition in Forbes or high-profile events, but this quiet, authentic connection with the people I loved most. Dad raised his glass one final time. To Emily, who reminds us that the greatest wealth isn't money, it's love, integrity, and family. Mom joined in. To Emily, who shows us that authenticity is the ultimate gift. Sarah and Michael echoed, raising their glasses. Even Derek, usually reserved, offered a sincere clink of his glass. As the night drew to a close, I helped my parents to the car. The Manhattan skyline shimmered behind us, a reminder of the world I navigated daily, a world of high stakes, big events, and endless pressure. And yet, amidst all that chaos, I realized the most meaningful success wasn't measured in dollars or clients, but in these moments: family, understanding, and love. Walking back into the quiet penthouse, I finally allowed myself a deep breath. The black card, the corporate events, the carefully orchestrated surprises, they were all tools, all symbols of the work I'd done to create a life of independence and purpose. But tonight had taught me something even more important: the power of being unapologetically yourself. I glanced at the framed photos on the walls, snapshots of events, travels, and quiet family moments. Each told a story of effort, love, and authenticity. I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, this night would remain etched in our hearts, a reminder that success is sweetest when shared with those who truly see and love you. And as my parents finally settled into bed, exhausted but radiant, I whispered softly to myself, sometimes the greatest legacy isn't wealth, fame, or achievements. It's the gift of being fully, authentically, and unapologetically yourself. With that thought, I finally allowed myself to relax, knowing that the evening's surprises had not only celebrated my parents, but it also brought our family closer than ever before, and in doing so, revealed the true meaning of success, love, and authenticity.